longest tenured members of council, and we had the mayor pro tem. So we trusted all of them to do a great job, and I think they did. So once we completed that process, we had 2 interview panels. I didn't interview them all by myself. We interviewed them, or excuse me, the professional panel that interviewed them was, it consisted of current and retired city managers and city and county managers. They're the ones that kind of graded them on what their skill set might be. And then we had a citizens panel. We had a couple of citizens from the community. We also had the mayor pro tem and myself. And those 2 panels, once we interviewed everybody, met and compared notes and moved forward. I know there's been a lot made out of offers. There's no offer until we get to a point where we're ready to present to the council. When we put in writing that this is an offer letter and we're making to you, but that piece doesn't take place until you've held negotiations. So if you identify, and we had identified at least one candidate this go round, and we entered into negotiations. And there ended up not being any real meeting of the minds, so we had to recognize the fact that we were going to be unable to bring forward a recommendation to council. Now, this has happened before. It's happened at least 2 times during the processes that we have undergone trying to identify public safety department heads. Each time we got to the negotiations and we kind of hit a crossroads, so we had to go on to another candidate. As you can tell by the leadership quality in our public safety departments, the system worked. This was a little different. I think one of the reasons is that we had a couple of members of council that decided to reach out to who they perceived to be some of the candidates. And that was unfortunate, because if a counselor gets involved in the negotiation process, in my mind, that negates the opportunity to revisit hiring that individual. So that's the reason this was put on hold, and we're looking forward to getting it rebooted probably around the first or second week of January. I know we've had some conversation from members of the council. We respect council. I respect them. That's why we included them in this process as early and as often as we could. A couple of the counselors are newer. They were appointed, not elected, and they didn't understand the process, didn't have any experience with the process. And there was one other council that a little more disappointing, because this individual's been on council for a while and played the part of the schoolyard bully, throwing sand at people from the sandbox, called me a liar. And when in fact the truth is, this counselor is extremely uninformed as to the process, and that can happen 2 ways. One is they have never read the charter. The other is that, and worse, is if they have read the charter, they have decided that it doesn't apply to them. Well, Constitution of the United States applies to them, Constitution of Georgia applies to them, the charter applies to them. So that's where we are, and hopefully it clears up a little bit of the process, because that's the thing I think that's kind of gotten wrapped around the axle and gotten lost in a lot of the rhetoric, is that there is a process that the mayor's office elected to use, didn't have to use, but elected to use to try to make sure we found a good candidate. It's worked for all of our department heads in the public safety realm, and we're confident it'll work. We had a little bit more of a challenge, I think, with this particular position because everybody has Google and YouTube, and they had seen what had transpired with our previous city manager. So anyway, I hope that answers everything. It probably doesn't, so if anybody has questions, we'll try to answer them best we can. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the term derelict of duty has been floating around. Exactly what does that mean? What is the result in the event of something like that? Is there an impeachable accusation? And does impeachment have anything to do with the mayor? Does it happen here?
I'll leave that for the attorneys to sort out. I just know that if we're following Georgia state law, which we are, if we're following the advice of our attorneys, which we are, and if we're following actually the advice of an outside third-party attorney, which we are, who tells us we're doing it just right, I really don't worry about that. I think most of this has resulted from misinformation and kind of unfair characterizations of the process, of the office, and of the individuals that we're trying to vet. Yes, ma'am.
You'd mentioned before that you hadn't had a finalist for this
Right.
position, but you have entered into negotiations
We have.
with at least one candidate. Can you, I guess, explain or define what finalists will mean for people when you get to the point of naming them publicly?
Finalists is when we've made a decision on the one candidate that we want to present to council. And then when that council has an opportunity to review the resumes and talk with these individuals, because there's a required 2-week gap from the time that finalist is named until the council votes them up or down. So when we talk finalists, that's what we mean is the individual that we are prepared to bring to council.
You touched on this but didn't mention names. I'm assuming you are talking about Councilor Tucker when she said, when I hear a blatant lie on the news that a job offer wasn't made by CCG regarding the city manager is highly disappointing. Also last night, Councilor Anchor said you needed to make a choice and said it was a lack of leadership. Respond to those two individuals. You skirted around it. I mean, it's clear who you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, some people are anxious to throw. It's almost like a fifth grader, right? You start calling names or you start making accusations. What it really is people who are ignoring the process as it's spelled out. And it may be that they just were uninformed as to the process. Councilor Aker, with a lack of leadership, frankly, I think it's gotten personal. I think he still tries to make it a personal vendetta against me from time to time, and I get it. That's okay. But when sitting around that council table, you've got one job, and that's to try to make life better for the people in this community. And that involves occasionally going out and trying to identify individuals to hire. And that's the process we're going through. We have stuck to this process. It has worked. We've had a few extra challenges with this one, and we're working through it.
Follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. Did the discussion last night at the table involving Mr. Anchor and you and Councilor Tucker's post, has that made this job more difficult to hire, and why?
Well, I think anytime there is a disruption in the legislative branch or the executive branch, certainly it's going to make news. Certainly it's going to be out there on the web, social media, and people that we interview are interviewing us too. So they've seen some of these clips, and I can tell you that the professional panel we had with all of the current city managers and county managers, it was a big focal point for them in trying to advise us on how to move forward.
Okay.
Dylan?
I got probably 2 questions